morning. My name's Darren. I'm on the teaching team here at Neighborhood. I want to wish all the dads a happy Father's Day. Let them stay inside today. There's great golf. There's a baseball game on. Don't make them do anything. I hope my wife is watching online. So, here's how the story appeared in the LA Times 6 months ago. It was about a year ago, actually. So, a 53-year-old woman from Los Angeles claims she bought the winning ticket in last month's $26 million lottery, but unfortunately, her winning ticket was destroyed before she had a chance to claim her prize. The unidentified woman made the purchase at a liquor store in Compton shortly after 1 a.m. She said, "Up until then, I had never played the lottery, but that night I just felt lucky." Let me stop right there. How many of you have been in a liquor store in Compton at 1 a.m. without a bulletproof vest and a gun and said, "Gosh, I feel lucky. I'm feeling lucky tonight"? Unfortunately, her hopes and dreams slipped down the drain when she realized her winning ticket was left in the laundry. She claimed she put the lottery ticket in her pants pocket when she left the store, but the next morning those pants went into the wash and the winning ticket was destroyed in the process. Classic story. The store's surveillance camera, however, confirmed that she purchased the ticket, and that video has been turned over to the California Lottery Commission for review. But lottery officials say the ticket needed to be redeemed by May 27th. So according to the rules, she will not be able to claim the prize, and a portion of the jackpot will now go to California Public Schools. Teachers, your check is in the mail. And you deserve it after this last year. So, hopeless situation. This is part 3 of our series, It Is Hard to Be Human. And if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. You are either going into a storm, you're in the middle of a storm, or you're just coming out of a storm. So if things feel really great right now, beware, because a storm may be around the corner. And a lot of us, over the past 15 months, have been in a storm. I mean, think about what life was like a year ago, 15 months ago, however long it was, when things just changed entirely, and people were waking up saying, "Gosh, this is great. You know, I can't wait to see what tomorrow is going to bring. What mask am I going to wear today?" You know, we were so excited to face the day. No, it was awful. And every single day, it got worse and worse and worse. And people in this room lost people that they were close to. People in this room lost jobs. People in this room faced financial hardships. Kids couldn't go to school. I mean, it was tough. It was a hopeless situation for so many people. And just because we're coming out of the storm with the pandemic, it is still a very, very difficult time. And when Jesus entered the scene 2,000 years ago, his theme was that he came to give hope to the hopeless. People who were struggling, he said, "I have come for you." People who didn't have a job, people who were sick, people who were the rejected, people who had made stupid mistakes. He said, "I have come to give hope. I know that you are in a hopeless situation, and I am here for you." And he would do it over and over again. And like any good communicator, he would find ways to share his message in a way that people could understand. He was a great communicator. And so in the book of John, Jesus is speaking to a group of Pharisees, people who rejected the idea that he was actually the Son of God. And he was trying to explain, this is why I'm here. This is why I've come. It's in John chapter 10. It's verses 1 through 10. Here's what it says. "Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they'll run away from him because they don't recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but when the Pharisees still didn't understand what he was telling them, he said again, "Very truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in, they will go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they have life and have it more abundantly." Lots of stories about animals in the Bible. Lions, there's dogs, there's snakes, all sorts of animals. No stories, by the way, about cats, because cats were a mistake. Jesus never talked about cats. Go back through, read it. You won't find anything about cats. But he always talked about sheep. And when he talked about people like us, he referred to us as sheep, which is kind of offensive because sheep are stupid. I mean, dumb. One sheep will go over a cliff and the rest will follow the sheep. There are no maverick sheep. There are no sheep who are leaders. There are no motivational conferences led by sheep. They just exist. Have you ever seen a sheep run? They just kind of hobble along. They don't even know how to run. They don't look like a lion. They're just stupid sheep. And Jesus called us sheep. Why? Is it because we're stupid? Well, a lot of us are. But mostly what he was saying is that sheep need a protector. Sheep need a shepherd. And so when Jesus showed up, he positioned himself as a shepherd. These sheep don't understand what they are supposed to do. They look at each other and try to follow one another, and that doesn't work. I have come so that I could be the shepherd, because Jesus knew that without a shepherd, sheep die. Plain and simple. The rest of the world is out to get my people, and I have come to protect them. It's my job to give them life, to protect their life. And without me, they will die. But Jesus even goes a step further in verse 10, and he says, I have come to give them life, I've come to protect them, and I have come to give them life more abundantly. I don't know about you, but right now I'm not really thinking about a more abundant life. I mean, my life is great. Got 2 great kids, got a great wife, got a great job, but after the past 15 months, I'm kind of just looking for normalcy. I'm walking into a store now and I'm going, hey, mask, no mask. Where we do the mask, just now getting comfortable shaking hands with people again. There are still people that are very frightened about where we are with the health of our world, and I get that. But for me, I just want normalcy. I'm not even thinking about an abundant life. Give me some time and I'll get back to the abundant part. I'm just looking for normalcy. Can we just get back to normal? Right? For many of us, we're kind of in a reset mode. We're kind of in a mode where we just want to kind of hit reset, and can we just start over again and just move forward? Like before I became a Christian, before I began to follow Jesus, I used a PC, a Windows-based operating system. Now, if you haven't made the decision to follow Christ and purchased an Apple product, that's okay. You'll get there. You'll get there. I promise you will. But back then, I remember I had a PC and I was sitting in Tazaria, in the coffee shop, Tazaria. And I was going through my deal, and if you've ever had a PC, does anyone understand the term, the green screen of death? Anyone? Anyone? You're all Apple users. Well, anyway, here's what happens. When you have a PC and your operating system goes down, the computer screen goes black or green. And there's these little, analog numbers that show up or letters, and you are toast. There is nothing you can do. You can bang on the keyboard. You can do all these different things. And at that moment in time, you are making deals with God. You are promising to become a missionary. You are promising to go to church whenever the doors are open. You're promising to be nice to your wife and kids. You're on the phone with tech support with someone who is not speaking very good English. And you are begging to do whatever you can. You are begging them to do whatever they can just so that you can get back to normal. You have literally hit a wall and you can't go any further. You are done. You are toast. It's an awful feeling. 20 years ago, I used to run a lot. I ran a bunch of 5Ks and 10Ks, did a few half marathons. I did 2 marathons. Yes, it's amazing. You know what the hardest thing is about running a marathon? Finding a way to interject that point into conversations to impress people. Because marathons aren't something people talk about. And so you have to find a way to kind of get it in there, like, oh, you're going to Alaska. That must require a lot of planning and preparation, much like I had to do when I ran a marathon. Just kind of get people to, oh, you're 83. You are the picture of health. You look amazing, much like I was when I ran a marathon. You kind of got to sneak it in there, just so that people can go, wow, you ran a marathon. No, the hardest thing about running a marathon is finishing the marathon. A marathon is how far? 26.2 miles. You know that you're following a marathon runner, if you're in your car and they have a little sticker there that says 26.2, makes them feel better, right? Makes you feel bad, makes them feel better. You know how far 26.2 miles is? It's just a little further than 26 miles. It's a long way, And you have to train. You don't wake up on Monday morning and say, hey, I'm going to run a marathon this weekend. I guess some people could. I couldn't. I mean, it's months and months and months of training. I think I trained for like 9 months. You start with, a very short run, like from your bedroom to the kitchen, and you slowly build up to where you're running around the block. And then you're running a couple of miles, and then you're running 4, and then you're running 6, and then you back off and run 5, and then you go 7 and 8, and then you do 6, and then you go, and it goes on and on and on until you're running like 20 miles. I remember running from Visalia to Tulare and around Mooney Grove, training, thinking this is supposed to be fun. But the idea is you do that so that you can finish the race. Because the worst thing that happens to a runner in a marathon, you don't even see it. Only the people around you see it. And it's called hitting the wall. And it's bad. It's awful. Usually happens around mile 20 or 21. That's what marathon runners will tell you. And what happens is you are cruising along and you're feeling good, and then your body starts to kind of slow down. And your body starts telling you, this was the dumbest thing you could have done. You are an idiot. You are a failure. And then you start agreeing with your body. You know what? You're right. I am an idiot. I am a failure. What happens is, it's actually scientific. Your body starts losing its glycogen level. It starts going down. And glycogen is a carbohydrate. It sits in your muscles. And when it starts getting depleted, your body has nothing to work from. Your body is just done. Your body says, you have hit a wall and you are not going any further. And so when you're out on the course, at mile 6, mile 7, volunteers, they're handing out water, and energy gels, and they're like, hey, you look great, you look great. Mile 20 is different. Mile 20 is hell. Mile 20 is when those volunteers were replaced by psychologists. And they're running alongside you doing therapy. They're taking copays, and they're like trying to get you to they're writing prescriptions. They just want you to keep going. Just come on. The finish line is right up there. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. I remember in my second marathon, my last marathon, I was at mile 20 or 21, and I don't know, I was in it was just a little circle, and we were singing Kumbaya, praying for one another, trying to help each other out, right? And this guy, no lie, this guy in a banana suit passes us. And he's just running, banana suit. And he didn't just jump on the track, he was there the whole time. And he runs by us. I don't know if it was like this deal with Chiquita or whatever, but he passes us. The worst thing happened when we all finished. People weren't like, hey, you did a great job, congratulations. They were like, do you know a guy in a banana suit got here like 20 minutes ago? How did you lose to a guy in a banana suit, I've gone to a couple marathons since then as a spectator because I want to find the guy in the banana suit, and I want to power slam him to the ground. He made us all feel so stupid. That wall was so tough. My body said, you are done. This is a hopeless situation. You will not finish. Try as you might, it will not happen. I don't know how I finished those last 6 miles. I don't know how I actually got to the finish line. I don't remember much of it, but I did. But that wall almost stopped me dead in my tracks. There's a great story about a wall in the Old Testament. Remember the Israelites, they were being led by Joshua to get to the Promised Land. This was a group of people, God's chosen people, who were brought out of exile. And God said, Joshua, I want you to lead these people to the Promised Land. Now, this wasn't a weekend trip. This wasn't like, hey, you're going to get on the road, and before you know it, you'll be there. Milk, honey, it's going to be amazing. 40 years they were on this journey, and it was tough. These were not big, strong warriors. This was just a group of folks who followed God and believed that God was going to get them to the Promised Land. And for 40 years, they faced trouble after trouble after trouble, and trial after trial after trial. And when it started, they were pumped. Things were great. They were on mile 6, and they were getting waters and energy gels. But then it just got so difficult to keep going. And here they are nearing the end of their journey. And God says, in order to get to the Promised Land, you have to destroy the city of Jericho. Jericho was inhabited by Canaanites. Canaanites rejected God, didn't believe in God, didn't endorse God. They were in favor of everything that was opposed to God. And God told Joshua, you have to destroy that city before you're able to claim my promise of the Promised Land. Now, here was a group of ragtag Israelites who had no warring experience. They just wanted to get to the Promised Land. They just wanted to follow God. But God said, I have a big job for you. And those people must have looked at Joshua and said, how in the heaven are we supposed to defeat those Canaanites? Because not only is it a group of people who hate God, but it's a group of people that are living in a fortress of a city. And it's crazy. Right before they actually started getting to the city of Jericho, God said that, oh, by the way, all of you guys who had been born on the road, you guys that haven't been circumcised, we got to get that taken care of before we get to Jericho. And so if you guys could just get circumcised first, then we'll continue heading out. So now you have a bunch of guys who haven't been circumcised, who are getting circumcised out in the desert, and then they have to defeat the Canaanites. This was a hopeless situation, especially for those guys. So they get to the city of Jericho, and that's what it looked like. An artist's rendering. There wasn't photographs back then. But Jericho was protected by a series of walls and a huge moat. Historians tell us that the wall, 2 walls, 17 feet high, 5 feet thick, of pure mass, solid stone. But around that wall was a huge moat that was 27 feet wide and 9 feet deep. So if you were able to get past the moat, if you were able to swim across, and then if you were able to actually get to the wall and try to start scaling the wall, you had Canaanites that were up on top of that wall who were shooting arrows at you, who were rolling boulders down the wall, who were trying to kill you. How in the world were they going to get victory in a situation like that? That was a situation that was incredibly hopeless. All of these people who had worked so hard to get to where they were, they hit a wall that was impenetrable, both physically and mentally. How are we going to get there when we are facing this? And God said, hey, you've followed me this long. Why are you going to stop now? And God gave this crazy idea to Joshua and expected Joshua to convince all of those Israelites, hey, here's what you're going to do. Get some ram's horns, some trumpets, and I just want you to march around the city for 7 days. Just march around the city, play your horns, and everything's going to work out just right. Okay, God, you've given us an incredibly hopeless situation. Now you're telling us to blow some trumpets and everything will be fine. They get the ram's horns, march around the city for 6 days, and lo and behold, on the 7th day, the entire city was destroyed. There was no hand-to-hand combat. God told them, I have a plan. Your job is to follow my plan. Regardless of how hopeless things look, regardless of how hopeless things seem, regardless of how hopeless you feel, I have a plan. I am your shepherd, as Jesus would say. Without me, you will die. You need me. So in that situation, they saw failure, and God saw victory. They saw death. That's what they were looking at, but God saw life. They had hit the wall, a wall that wasn't going to move, and God reminded them that the finish line was in sight. They had no idea how this was going to turn out because they hadn't seen it yet. But God knew how the story would end. And see, we see this played out over and over and over and over and over again. You know, you see each other on Sundays, and it's great. You see each other, hey, how you been? How's it going? But there are 6 other days of the week at Neighborhood Church. And on those 6 other days of the week, we have volunteers, and there are staff here that field phone calls. And people show up, and life is over for them. A divorce that was unexpected, right? A job that was lost, financial insecurity, relational insecurity, something she said to me, something he did to me, something the world has done to me, a situation that I am in that I don't deserve, and I don't know how I'm going to recover. And it's in those moments that God seems so silent. It's in those moments when you're feeling so hopeless, where you're saying, God, if you love me so much, then why in the world have you put me in this situation? Why am I having to face this situation? I certainly don't deserve it. I haven't done anything for this to happen to me, or I did this to myself. How in the world am I going to crawl out of this hole? People will call, people will come, and they have hit a wall and don't know what to do next. But I can tell you, just based on past experience, we don't know the end of the story. And for some people, the end of the story comes faster than others. For some people, the end of the story is something that they had hoped for, exactly what they had hoped for. For some people, the end of the story is nothing like they had expected. For some people, they are still waiting for what God is going to do next. And it's a tough time. It is so difficult to be living in a situation that seems so hopeless. When Jesus encountered people, when he encountered the woman at the well, her situation was hopeless. Everyone back there has abandoned and rejected me. When Jesus came to people who were sick and dying, their situation was hopeless. There was no medical fix. When people died, for goodness sakes, yeah, things are pretty hopeless when you're dead, right? But I can tell you over and over again, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, when things looked hopeless, God still showed up. Dozens of stories. In fact, people who actually made the decision to follow God, people who made the decision to follow Jesus in the New Testament, they were placed in situations almost purposefully. Hey, now it's going to get tough for you. Now what are you going to do? Now are you going to follow me? Now are you going to rely on me? In the Old Testament, you have Joseph. You know, he was betrayed by his brothers and thrown into prison. Yeah, that's not a good thing. You know, here's a guy who had done nothing wrong, but because his brothers hated him, thrown into prison. And then you have Moses. You know, Moses was standing on the edge of the Red Sea, and he had this huge army behind him, breathing down his back. You know, that's a hopeless situation. David stood across the valley from a giant. There's a hopeless situation. Daniel was facing a lion in a lion's den. That's a hopeless situation. You don't want a lion as a roommate. His friends were thrown into an oven. Jonah couldn't follow instructions, so he was swallowed by a whale. That didn't go over very well. Peter was a coward. Paul was put in prison. Lazarus was dead. Timothy was too young. Abraham was too old. The youngest son was stupid. The walls of Jericho were too big and too strong. And then Jesus was executed on a cross and buried in a tomb. Hopeless, 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 hopeless. But here's what I've learned. I've learned that you can never place a period where God has placed a comma. You can never place a period where God has placed a comma. We don't know punctuation like he does. In every situation where we think we've hit a wall and we cannot get past it, God is saying, just hold on. Things can turn around. Those same stories turn around. Joseph became second in command. The Red Sea actually parted. David killed the giant. Daniel tamed the lion. The oven, it was just room temperature. Peter became the rock. Paul rejoiced behind bars. Lazarus was just kidding. Timothy built a church. Abraham built a family. It goes on and on and on and on. The youngest son, he comes home to a party. The walls of Jericho, they came tumbling down, and then Jesus is risen from the dead. You can't find too many stories like that outside of the Bible. Do you think God was making a point? Do you think he looked at these stories and said, hey, let's just keep them hanging on the edge of their seats? No. He said they faced a wall, and the wall did not have to stop them for good. Now, we're talking about death to life stuff. And I don't know where you're at, because you may not have shared it with us, but we know where God is. Every time, God can turn a trial into a triumph. He can turn a test into a testimony. He can turn a victim into a victory. Paul said, God told me that in my weakness, you are strong. My grace is sufficient to you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. If you're feeling weak, if you're feeling hopeless, maybe that is exactly where you are supposed to be. We are here to share with you what the Bible says to us is that mile 20 does not have to be your wall. It does not have to be your wall. Our job is to help you get to mile 26.2. Bind yourself up against someone who can give you hope. Bind yourself up against something who can give you hope. And the only proven commodity we know of is what Jesus promised us and what God promises us in his word. Let's pray. Lord, I pray for everyone who's here this morning who is facing a situation that seems incredibly hopeless. And we know that sometimes words fall flat when we are in the middle of a really trying time. But I just pray that you comfort everyone in this room, everyone watching online, and remind them that you know the end of the story. We love you.